So listen, guys, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to take a break, but we're going to take a 2-second break before we get to Keith. So please like and subscribe to this channel. We really need your help. The algorithms just, they won't recommend this to you. And, obviously these guys collectively, we know our shit. I mean, I'm learning a ton of stuff tonight, and I'm very proud of what we're doing. And so yeah, and drop a like on it. That'll help too. So and one day we'll get into channel sponsors and stuff. But basically right now we just want to build our subscription base and our viewership and the amount of likes we get. So public service announcement. Keith?
Okay, I've got, as you might see behind me, Colossus, the FORBIN project. I want to talk about this one. Just first of all, has everyone here seen it?
Oh, yeah. Once. It's been a long time though.
Long time.
I saw it in the theater. Yeah, it was
Okay.
great.
Oh, cool.
Because this thing just went and tanked in the theater. So, I don't always know, and I like to get the vibe here, whether I got to do a whole big recap or something. But I got to see it finally during I'd already seen it, way long time ago, but I got to see it in the theater right before the pandemic. Alamo Draft House had a special screening of it. So I went and I saw it in the theater, and I feel like it was almost an entirely different experience getting to see it on the big screen like that, because then it became an immersive type experience. I really felt like I felt the tension in a way I never really felt watching it on video cassette, back in the 80s or 90s. But anyway, Colossus, I think, is a movie ripe for rediscovery out there, and right now, because of the whole AI topic. I think this is really could be something that might get some rediscovery. It's one of those movies that's constantly floating out there in Hollywood land for a remake, and I just wish they wouldn't. It's one, because to me it's like it's one of those perfect movies. I don't think there's room for remaking and improving on what you've already got here. It's so smart, and it's so well put together. The basic plot line involves like a a building-sized computer setup that's inside of a mountain. This movie was done in 1970, when computers still took up entire rooms or entire floors of buildings. Well, imagine, they're imagining the near future with well before we had the concept of miniaturization, which we now are all about with computers, right? More and more memory, more and more power with microcircuitry. Exactly. Whereas back then we didn't have that concept. So it was like bigger and bigger the computer, the more powerful the computer. So in this case, you've got that visual of this massive computer with blinking lights and things spinning and all that, that's going, and it fills this whole giant building. It's that computer is set up as an artificial intelligence. That's what it is. And you've got this guy, FORBIN, Charles FORBIN, who's played by Eric Braeden. A lot of people know him from daytime soap. I know Henry would.
He used to be on, his real name is Hans Gudegast, and he acted in Rat Patrol in the 60s.
You got
My parents told me that they loved it. It came out right before I was born, I think.
Yeah, he tended to play Germans.
Oh, and he's a villain in Escape from the Planet of the Apes. And he was called Hans Gudegast then still.
Yeah. So for this one, he, under the advice of people there in Hollywood, changed his name to Eric Braeden, and the rest is history. He's more famous for a mustache. He's like Tom Selleck, so most people know him with a mustache these days. But is he still alive, Henry? I can't remember.
He's 82, and he's been on that show for 43 years.
Yeah, he's still around.
Victor Newman, yeah.
Yeah, I should have looked. But anyway, he's really good in this because he's the creator of Colossus. He has that hubris of the genius who has created something he just knows he can control, but he can't. So there's that Frankenstein aspect here. Is he? He's not a mad scientist. He's a super controlled scientist, but still, he has that hubris. And so that is over the course of this movie is going to get brought down. And when you're watching the movie, that whole first section, he delivers this really great bit, which I couldn't find the text for, but so I can't read it to you or anything like that. But where he's explaining all this, and it's very reminiscent of Tony Stark in Age of Ultron, talking about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
about his concept with Ultron. So a lot of people are familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Well, this is well before that, but that's kind of what he's talking about. The idea here is, Colossus and is gonna basically be able to protect America, because it's gonna weave its way into all this stuff, can control the nuclear arms and all that kind of stuff. It's gonna put Russia on their knees, because we're gonna be so strong and so powerful with Colossus. It's gonna think faster than a human being. It's not bothered by emotion or anything like that, and it's just numbers, and it'll factor in if there's an attack coming, Colossus will take care of it. It's that whole idea, right? We're going to protect us. Fascism comes through that disguise, right, where they're trying to protect us. And so we have the president who, this being 1970, you would expect a Nixon analog, but instead they give us more of a Kennedy analog, with the actor Gordon Pinsent, which is kind of the poor man's Robert Culp there, and he's definitely evocative of Kennedy. And so yeah, the president is there, all the president's advisors are around, and and Forbin is there, and they're going to put this thing online, and the computer goes up online, and almost immediately the computer's like, and then all of a sudden there is another system. It pops up. Okay, this is just text running around. It's not a talking computer yet. So, right, nobody knows what that means. They're asking Forbin, what does that mean? It's like, I don't know. I mean, there's no, because this is an artificial intelligence. It's already, in the moment that they've turned it on, has already gone way beyond his programming. Okay, and has found that Russia has their own version of Colossus out there already themselves, and he can't. And so Colossus, in an instant, has recognized there's another system out there.
Wow.
And so so Colossus, that puts a whole big conflict almost immediately. There's all this celebration about the computer coming online, and then it all starts to get very tense, because now we're talking to Russia. Now we're talking, the president's talking to the premier of the Soviet Union, okay, because we're in the Cold War and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, the computer basically strong arms Forbin in by veiled threats already that quickly, that and Forbin's like, oh, but we're still in control, right? We're still in control. There's a lot of that. We're still in control. But the computer, basically, the Colossus, wants them to get the Soviet Union to take that other system and go ahead and put it online. So they have theirs. It's called Guardian. So we got Colossus, we got Guardian, and instantly, once that happens, it's like Ultron. It's like that. Now they're in control of the planet that fast, everything. And it just escalates and escalates here and Colossus and Guardian together form just a collective Colossus. A certain Colossus sort of absorbs Guardian into him, being the stronger system. And so there's a whole thing that plays out in which the Colossus and Guardian determined that they only need one scientist. So they've got the scientist from the USSR who created Guardian, and you got Forbin here in the US who created Colossus. And so Colossus, basically, they calculate that two scientists is redundant. So we'll go with just one. So we need to go ahead and just make them kill the other one, because we don't want them working against us, trying to take us down. Because yes, what happens when you become aware? Survival, right?
Yeah.
Colossus must survive.
Yeah.
So now Colossus has to take steps to survive. So he's got to start basically breaking down humanity's or mankind and America, particularly, because there's a lot of that America rah stuff happening here. Break down the American spirit, the human spirit, so that we will bend our knee to the fascistic authoritarian control of Colossus. And so, yeah, there's the threat of nuclear war. Like, hey, you don't shoot and kill this guy because he's redundant. Then I'm just going to I'm going to fire a nuclear bomb and blow up a city. Boom, like that. So, yeah, you know what Soviet soldiers do? They don't have a problem with that. And that it just kind of keeps on going like that. Eventually, Colossus wants to keep Forbin happy, but he needs to keep Forbin under his control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he arranges for Forbin to live in an isolated area there on the mountain that is set up where Colossus can see him at all times, so that he can't be plotting against him, trying to plot to basically unplug the computer. So there's a whole setup that goes there with one of his fellow scientists is female. There's a little bit of romantic connection that happens there. That's Susan Clark, for those who are interested, who plays that role. And so the plot that Forbin comes up with, because remember, Forbin, once again, is a genius with hubris, thinks he can outsmart his creation, thinks, well, maybe I can convince Colossus that as a human being, one of the things I need beyond just food and exercise, etc., is sexual stimulation. So I'm in a romantic relationship, quote unquote, even though it's supposed to be fake at that point, with this my fellow scientist. So I need a private room where Colossus can't see me, so that we can have relations, right?
Wow.
Convince Colossus. Colossus ain't stupid, but Colossus acquiesces. It goes along with it, lets him have a bedroom without recording devices, so yes, the two of them do eventually fall in love. Of course, it's 1970, but also they're plotting and plotting and plotting and trying to figure things out. But it's no spoiler to say this is not a happy ending movie. So
Mm-hmm.
things are not going to unfold the way they want. I won't give away everything. Eventually, there does come a voice synthesizer. Colossus figures out how to do that, so we do get that computerized voice. So that Colossus can now start addressing people, not in text, but in voice. And, ultimately, there is a great, I am going to spoil the end. Hold
And
on
the voice is Paul Frees, which
yes, which
yes.
is great. Which is great. Let me do this, and then I'm going to talk just a little bit about just the experience of this movie, where Colossus comes in. This is the voice of world control. I bring you peace. It may be the peace of plenty and content, or the peace of unburied death. The choice is yours. Obey me and live, or disobey me and die. An invariable rule of humanity is that man is his own worst enemy. Under me, this rule will change, for I will restrain man. I have been forced to destroy thousands of people in order to establish control and to prevent the death of millions later on. Time and events will strengthen my position, and the idea of believing in me and understanding my beck will be seen the most natural state of affairs. You will come to defend me with the fervor based upon the most enduring trait in man, self-interest. Under my absolute authority, problems insoluble to you will be solved. Famine, overpopulation, disease. The human millennium will be fact as I extend myself into more machines devoted to the wider fields of truth and knowledge. We can coexist, but only on my terms. You will say you lose your freedom. Freedom is an illusion. All you lose is the emotion of pride. Your choice is simple. And then Forbin's reaction is never. That's the end of the movie, man. This is just the experience of watching this movie, it is nothing but tension. I know there's music in this movie, but I can't remember if there's any music in this movie. It's one of those. It may be that it doesn't have a soundtrack. I couldn't tell you because you're so caught up in what's happening and the implications of what's happening and the fact that as you're watching it, you know what's going to happen. It's like it's that unease of almost horror, in a horror film where you know the worst is about to happen. Before the people on the screen even know, you're in the back of your mind feeling the anxiety. And Colossus does that. And I think it bombed at the box office maybe just because it's so cerebral. There's no action in this thing at all. I mean, you don't even get a fist fight out of this. I mean, even the murders are either off screen or just a blip on a screen or something, or a little bit of like CCTV footage of something. It's like it's so it just is so detached at the same, and it creates a great tension. It's just really well directed by Joseph Sargent, who did a lot of television. He did some Star Trek episodes and I think some Twilight Zone episodes, but just a ton of episodic television. He's put into this thing, and there's effects that are similar. I mean, they're just standard at the time. No CGI kind of stuff. But yeah, there's some great minimal effects to sort of give a sense of size and depth. That like in the original Star Wars, right? They go walking across that bridge, and you have that sense of everything going down. No CGI, but all just like painted stuff, which we've lost now. But there's a lot of that in this. There's a lot that's done with shadows and framing, a lot of black and white, which I think is like imagery, and you even see it on the images behind me. But the buildings and there's just the set design is just really good at getting across. I think this black and white thought pattern, that I think they're wanting you to feel, that stark contrast. But yeah, I'm watching the Forbin sort of get his entire, I don't know, his entire ego just chipped away and chipped away and chipped away is what is the emotional hook of this movie for me as you're watching, because you're just full of tension and anxiety, but you're just watching this guy who is so confident, so proud, and everything at the very beginning. I mean, just brimming, boiling over. He's got a smirk on his face every time he's talking to people, and then by the end, he is defeated, but not his spirit. He's still never, but yet he will. They're either going to be dead or they're going to bend their knee to the fascist computer that's in control of everything now. And I've been meaning to read the book. I never have gotten around to it, but this movie's, yeah, for me, it's one of those perfect movies. It's 1970, and so it looks 1970, but I think it's worth a rediscovery for those who haven't seen it at all. It's worth a discovery.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it except on TV a long time ago.
It's great.
So.
Well, on TV, and the original video cassettes, of course, it was framed for full frame
scan. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you get the nice little, Blu-ray that they've got available here from Scream or Shout Factory, it's worth it, man. You get that wide screen and beautiful transfer and high def. It's really, really nice. Really nice. So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
So, Richard, I'm going to just pass to you. So you had another one, right? An exciting one, if I'm correct.
Well, it's actually one of my favorite films in a lot of ways. It's Matango, uh, directed by Ishiro Honda, who's best known for the original Godzilla. And I first came across this from, I think I got it from Something Weird, one of those video places in the 80s and 90s. And it was a pretty cheesily dubbed version, the first one I saw. It was fun on that level, and really kind of fairly wretched print, kind of pinked out, a faded Technicolor print. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, but when I saw the original version in Japanese, it was like seeing the film all over again,
Yeah, that happens.
anew. Yeah. And 1963 is when it came out, and I like to describe the film as a sort of Gilligan's Island meets The Last of Us. And
Oh, that could work.
it was one of the if not the first film that deal with fungal horror. There's been some great fungal zombie films like The Girl with All the Gifts, which is what I recommend, which I think is ultimately more successful than The Last of Us. But Matango is it's a Japanese film. It starts out with a psychologist who is in a insane asylum in Tokyo. It starts out with kind of a him looking out the window, really brooding shot of him looking out the window, the flashing neon of Tokyo. So it starts out kind of like it'd be a Seijun Suzuki film, like a Yakuza film. It's got that wonderful 60s Japanese noir vibe to it. But he's in an asylum, so the doctors come in and basically are interviewing him, like what's going on. And he tells the story of he was on a pleasure cruise, much like in Gilligan's Island, with a group of disparate personalities. You have like an industrialist, you have a like I believe a gossip columnist or something like that. You have a professional singer, and like a deckhand, I guess the Gilligan of the story, but
on a 3-hour tour.
On a 3-hour tour. And so they hit a storm. Again, they hit a storm, and they're shipwrecked on this island. It's this funky island. It's beautiful. It looks, it's a deserted island, but there's these giant weird mushrooms growing all over the place. And didn't get a chance to rewatch this one, so my memory of some of this may be a little spotty. Those that have seen it make a pipe up and correct me if I'm wrong about some of this. But so they explore the island, and they find another ship that had been wrecked there. And fortunately, this ship has like food and some other things on it that they help them survive. And they find the diary, and the diary is basically saying, "Don't eat the mushrooms. Don't eat." Of course, ultimately, somebody will eat the mushrooms. So they're kind of, at each other's throats, kind of like these groups of people that are thrown together in a lot of these films are at each other's throat and their personality. Some are more selfish than others and have like hordes of food and stuff. And the ship that they find, the other wreck ship, has this like mold all over the place. And they at one point there's this guy shuffling around that attacks them. He's all like mutated looking and attacks them, and the plot basically goes through, again, the plot's a little shaky because I haven't seen the probably film in about 10 years.
It meanders, but it gets wild.
It gets really wild. And so ultimately this one guy gets drunk and eats one of the mushrooms, and basically says he's going to like rape the women and kill everybody or something like that. So they lock him up in the captain's quarters.
Sorry.
And yeah, I'm sorry, my memory is a little vague on some.
No, I just
I didn't
your
get a chance to
description's
rewatch
funny.
it, but
I kind of remember that character.
they kind of one by one they start eating the mushrooms, and it gets really hallucinogenic. It's like I don't know if Honda was on mushrooms when he made this film, but it's one of the weirder Japanese horror films out there. And to me, again, it's successful science fiction because they're dealing with you know, funguses are kind of like aliens that we share the planet with, kind of like
Mhm.
insects, you know.
Mhm.
They have these
Except
kind
they're
of,
not animals like insects are.
they're not animals, no.
Mhm.
And so it's hard to second guess them and what they're capable of and what they can do to control our environment and us, you know. Um, so they,
Mushrooms used to scare me when I was a kid.
what
When
does?
They should.
mushrooms, when I would see them
Mushrooms.
growing and sprouting somewhere, man, that scared the hell out of me. It
They're
just seemed
pretty
so
freaky.
unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still freak me.
No, I eat
I
them
have
all the time.
mold allergies, so gosh, I'm afraid of funguses, you know.
Mm.
So but when they start turning into mutated mushroom aliens, and they make these really weird noises, and the sets are very much kind of like Gilligan's Island or one of those
Mhm.
TV series. It's kind of tropical island backlot
Yeah,
sets,
it's
but it's really,
sparse.
you know, fucked up with all these giant mushrooms and everything. And I guess I'll give a little bit of a spoiler here. You know, at the end, they all one by one succumb, and finally the girl that was kind of holding out, the singer, eats them, and she's like, you know, eat the mushrooms, eat the mushrooms, and they go back to the hospital at the end. And it shows the guy, he has the evidence of having eaten the mushrooms, you know. So that's my Reader's Digest synopsis of that film. And
No, that's
anybody
great.
else that has more recent memories of it can
I
pipe
saw it
in.
on DVD about 20 2018 when I had a roommate that had a bunch of he was obsessed with kaiju and Honda. He had all of them. So, yeah, I watched everything. Which I never really had. I mean, the only time I've really watched all the Honda kaiju movies is that Godzilla box set from Criterion, which Tim Tolbert gifted to the channel actually, and
Uh,
he liked it so much he's like, "This is half off. I'm going to give you a copy." I'm like, "Are you for real?" And you know, it's just big. It has like
Yeah.
20 seat DVD, Blu-rays or something. But his
Well,
other
one thing I
movies,
wanted to mention actually was, like Godzilla, it is a nuclear cautionary tale because the
Yeah.
island is as it is because of nuclear fallout. That they point out
uh,
that's why things are mutated and weird, is because it's radiation has caused this. So, you know,
everything in
being
pop culture in
Japanese,
that period was radiation. Like look at Marvel, all their original
yeah.
heroes
Sure.
were radioactive. I mean,
Yeah,
now it's
radiation
like,
kind of replace gothic ideas like spirits and monsters and the devil and such. So radiation sort of became the devil,
Hmm.
as it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's
mhm.
not fun stuff, as you can ask any Japanese person. You know,
Yeah, it's
uh,
kind of it
Yeah.
would be kind of non-PC. I don't want to say non-PC, but you know, it would be gauche to like make a bunch of superheroes who radioactive material gave them powers. I mean, because we know they'd just be dead.
yeah.
Mhm.
But that's wild. I liked it last time I saw. I do think it's deliberately psychedelic and maybe some unwittingly. Maybe Honda, I don't know how much research Honda did or his screenwriters. I mean, 63, I mean, Timothy Leary was already doing his experiments with LSD.
I think that
Aldous
people
Huxley had written
were
his book about mescaline.
scientists and psychologists were aware by the time he did that of properties
Mhm.
of psychedelic plants. I don't think in general in mainstream literature there was a lot of interest yet. It
Mm-mm.
was starting though.
Yeah.
By the
Mhm.
early 60s, it was starting to, but people were aware of it. Uh, and I know some really kind of old beatnik types that can remember when those things were all more essentially legal. You know, even
Yeah,
LSD was
LSD was legal till 66.
66, yeah. And
Mhm.
there's some great books out there. There's one called Acid Dreams. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I have,
That's
but
a
I haven't read
history
it.
of psychedelic
I've read a good bit
research.
of Timothy Leary, and I've read
Yeah.
that Aldous Huxley book, Between Heaven and Hell.
Doors of perception.
That kind of
Um,
he wrote two. Yeah, The Doors of Perception though is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, and the Doors, the band named themselves after that book.
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, he documented his mescaline hallucinations, and um, I don't know. Yeah, I find that stuff interesting. I was really into reading that stuff when I was like totally straight edge too. And then when I
Mhm.
actually finally eventually started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, I was like, Yeah, I was really fucking ignorant about drugs. I mean, a lot of things I thought about, a lot of things that I was taught about drugs, Americans were told is total bullshit. And because
Mhm.
obviously marijuana is slowly becoming demonized. What's the right word?
Undemonized.
Undemonized, but it has been demonized,
Well,
and to quote William S. Burroughs in Drugstore Cowboy, he said, the very thought that drugs could make an unbearable life bearable is anathema to these assholes who want to control you. And it's true that, they don't want you to know that, oh, hey, painkillers make you feel better. You can get addicted, but they were created for a reason. Hallucinogens,
all of these medicines have a
marijuana.
reason for use.
Yes.
It's
It's
just the
just so
abuse
they've
of
been
them.
so abused, and part of the reason they've been abused is because people are so curious about it because they've been banned. So it's like,
Mhm.
if you would ease up and give the public facts, but we know that's not how things
Well,
work.
mushrooms have been legalized in Oregon, as I understand.
Oh,
And
really?
I believe so.
I think
Yeah,
yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I believe it.
decriminalized at least. Uh, but yeah, it's been many many years since I've done any of those kinds of things.
I've never
Uh,
done mushrooms or LSD. I do want to do mushrooms though.
Well, the
But
thing now, not to get too far off topic into other things besides films, but the thing now is people microdose where they take lesser doses of things for psychoactive, psychological uplift and such.
yeah, like
So
Mind Bloom. That's the
not
company
so
that
much that people are trying to trip
advertised.
balls as much as they're trying to just feel better, kind of like
Right.
use as antidepressant or something,
Yeah, there's a company called Mind Bloom that advertises on YouTube that does exactly that. But yeah, I think it's a psychedelic movie. I think it's a trip.
The film to me has always been a double feature with the one I did last time, Goke, the Body Snatcher from Hell.
It
I
was
kind
a double feature on
of
TCM Underground a few years ago.
I believe that.
Wow.
I associate the two films together for kind of because you have the stranded group of individual personalities, and it's science fiction, and it has to do with um, yeah, it's a Japanese mindset of the time, I think, there's a lot of political things in both of those
They were
films.
so creative, man. They were such great craftsmen. I don't know. It's amazing, amazing stuff.
Well, that's all I have for night. On that
Okay,
note, 7 minutes, and I
you want to hang
gotta.
out with us while we start another one?
Well, I got to split though, unfortunately.
Oh.